Okay? So basically, we have the traditional method of teaching and flipped teaching, flipped learning, also called the flipped classroom method. So what is a traditional? So let's have a look at traditional first, where usually the teacher stands in front of the class, deliver his or her lectures, while students sit in rows, okay? Students taking notes or falling asleep or texting these days on their iPads. And passive learning, okay? Then they get homework, and then they do exams, and oftentimes they cram the night before. That's the traditional method of learning and teaching. I agree. I see a few heads nodding. Okay? All right. So what are some of the problems with the traditional method? Okay? Practice is separated from teaching. Okay? And it's done alone. Students study by themselves, there's no collaboration. Okay? Once the teaching is done, it's gone. Okay? Fast learners get bored, slow learners get behind, and teachers does not have time to give one-to-one attention to any students. So that's a traditional method, classically. Okay? So how is flipped learning different? Well, in flipped learning, the students can review for understanding. So they get to understand the material before. Okay? They can pause, review, replay, and learn at their own pace. Okay? They also learn at their own time at home. Okay? They provide support if needed by the teacher. And students are responsible for their own learning. Okay? Practice given at different levels. And these days, students are more technology-minded than we are. Purdue, in medicine anyways, all of the medical students have a smartphone. They don't even have the old phone anymore. They all have the smartphones. So, what happened in class? In class, they practice together. And by being together, they have collaboration, which is not in traditional. Students learn from each other, thus there's peer learning, which is a very powerful method of learning. Okay? Teacher can give one-to-one individual attention and hands-on practice of projects during the classroom. So that's in class. Now, before the class, at home, they have to read or watch the video before coming to class. Because they can watch the video, they can pause, rewind, or fast forward as per students' understanding. They can read the script if the script is written. They have time to think to understand the material. And oftentimes they can watch a teacher or the instructor do some practice problems before they try themselves. So consequences, they're better prepared for the topic, and they take notes at home called the WSQ, where they watch the movie, they summarize their notes, and they answer some questions. So this happens before the class, at home. During the class period, there is group discussion with other students, what you learn at home. Thus, there's peer learning and collaborative learning. They have group activities, or they can do it independently, depending on their personality. And in class, they do practice. They don't get the lecture anymore. They practice in class. Okay? Teacher can check for students' understanding. And the beauty is, the student can have understanding before moving into a new concept called scaffolding. Anybody not sure about what scaffolding is? Go ahead, put your hands up. Okay. Scaffolding is learning a material. Before you give the next material, you have to understand first. So scaffolding is a term probably from putting on the roof, okay, where you have to learn one concept first before you get another concept. And you have to understand that concept before you give it. So there's no, you don't understand this, and then the teacher already going to, you'll be totally lost. Okay, so scaffolding. So after the class, the videos and notes are available as long as the students need it. Okay, the student can review the lessons at their own time, and they can prepare their lessons prior to exams at their own time, at their own understanding. Any questions so far?
Modern day students, they don't like exams.
Modern day students don't like exams. Nobody likes exams.
The majority.
Yeah. But exams is part of education. Yeah. You have to evaluate the students' understanding. So that one cannot escape. Okay, any other questions? Comments? What is the difference between flipped classroom and what? And blended learning? I'm not sure what you mean by blended learning. Can you explain a little bit? This thing doesn't come very forward, so. So the comment is blended learning also uses some components of this. So the question is, what's the difference between blended learning and this? Probably similar. So although it's a new term, this flipped learning actually is not a new concept. Historically, it's been going on for quite a number of years, as far back as even 10 years ago. But we haven't used the term. So some of us probably are already practicing the flipped learning techniques. So when I learned about this, I look back at my own teaching and say, hey, I'm already doing flipped learning techniques. Okay? So some of you are already using the flipped learning techniques, but didn't use that word. So now it looks like a new concept, but actually it's not a new concept. So probably blended learning has 50–70% components of what we call flipped teaching, flipped classroom. So probably there's some similarities. This one is an addition to. Okay? Any other questions?
Can I share my experience? Previously, we did a research with Dr. Robert previously. We tried to implement online learning to students. So actually, the knowledge nowadays, everything is already, the knowledge era. Everything is all on the internet, and you can get all the information there. So the students actually, if you think of that, then the students don't need teachers anymore. They just go online, they study by themselves, they do everything by themselves. But whatever present in the internet, they need to be applied to whatever relevant to our team, our school. So what we did was, we also teach lectures, but we use the online teaching where the students start learning themselves, and in the class we combine two together, and we call it the blended learning, and we give a research on that. So probably this is the research. About the flipped learning is one problem that we find is when we give the students everything before the lectures, the students don't come to the lectures anymore. And if you do exercises, that's a problem we have. If you do the exercise, then the students don't come to the exercises. They do all the exercises at home. So we have an MRC downstairs, multimedia room downstairs, where we want the students to come to the multimedia room and do all these exercises. And if they need something, they can ask the lecturer straight away. But rather than half of the students never appear, they do everything at home. So that's the main problem that we find with giving the students before lectures. That's sharing my experience.
In addition to that, slowly the concept of the teacher is changing nowadays. We are changed to facilitator, not teacher exactly. We are supposed to be facilitator. And we guide the students how to get the information, where to get the information. And in addition to that, we may give the suggestions and we may give the ideas, the innovativity and the creativity.
These are the few things which I just read up from various literature and books came across. The difference between the blended and the flipped is, for flipped particularly, it is emphasized that you record a lecture and give it to them. Addition to that, you may give some online or e-learning materials. In blended learning, you can give anything. You just read and come. So that's blended learning. What is the advantage of flip over a blended learning was what is actually projected in literature is usually most of the students have a concept that when they are taught, they will learn more if they have a role model in front and then they get to listen to them. So that model is not erased from the teaching method in flip learning. So that's why we have a teacher and the blackboard or PowerPoint projector in the video when the students watch it. So it gives an appearance of a classroom also, plus it does not waste the time in the classroom. So the classroom then is utilized for what Dr. Robert has explained. So then that's the only difference. It's a classroom-based environment that is given in the video, and in blended, you give different types of resources, of e-resources for them to read up.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, if there's no questions, let's have a look at some videos, okay?
This is a classroom. The teacher stands at the front, and the students watch and listen. You'll recognise this because it's probably how you were taught, and how your parents were taught before you. But there are a lot of problems with this approach to teaching. You see, not all students learn at the same speed, so some get left behind. And while some students learn better by listening, others may learn better by doing. This means that teachers can't always do the best job they can, but there is another way. The flipped classroom addresses these problems and makes learning more personal. First, the teacher makes a video that delivers the content they usually teach in class. Then they share it online with students who can watch it before the next lesson. This leaves the teacher free to spend class time leading activities that help students apply the knowledge. Students can rewind and rewatch a video as many times as they like and come back to class with questions for the teacher. So keeping up with the class is no longer an issue. Students can access the video at any time using mobile devices, giving them the ability to learn more independently. Instead of sitting and listening, students can spend class time applying knowledge in more practical ways. And teachers are free to spend their time working with students and giving them individual support and attention. The flipped classroom model is already making a difference to students and teachers worldwide, so get involved. Discover more at flippedinstitute.org and become part of the movement.
Every day, 7.2 million students walk into classrooms throughout the United States. These classrooms generally look the same. 30 students sit in rows of desks, taking notes in their notebooks, while the teacher stands at a whiteboard teaching a lesson. Regardless of ability level, each student receives the exact same information
at the exact same pace. As Ms. Jackson presents this same material, students respond differently. Tommy gets it, while Allison is bored, and Maria is lost. At the end of the day, these same students head home. While at home, they sit at the kitchen table doing their homework and trying to remember what Ms. Jackson said. Students like Tommy make it most of the way through the homework, while others, like Allison, find it easy and fly through it. At the same time, students like Maria get frustrated and need some extra help. Ms. Jackson recognizes that students have different needs and would love to work individually with each student, but this requires time and resources that her school does not have. One solution to this problem is the flipped classroom. Here's what it looks like. While at home, students sit in their rooms watching videos of the lesson that Ms. Jackson assigned. Tommy is still able to work at his normal pace. Allison is no longer bored because now she can use this new technology to fast forward through the easy material. And Maria is no longer frustrated because she can review the material that she didn't understand while pausing and rewinding. When she really gets stuck, she can get help from her classmates. New technology platforms like Moodle and Edmodo make it easy for her to chat online with her classmates. Just as the homework is different, the classroom is different as well. Instead of standing in front of the room speaking, Ms. Jackson walks around the room. She checks in with Tommy as he works collaboratively with some students. She pushes Allison further with some more challenging work. And she helps Maria with the pieces that she still doesn't quite get. In the traditional model, the teacher stands between the students and the knowledge. But with the flipped classroom model, the students have direct access to the knowledge, and the teacher serves as a coach, mentor, and guide, helping the students access this knowledge. The flipped classroom leverages technology in a way that lets both Ms. Jackson and the students make the most of their time and efforts.
I'm Aaron Sams. We're here in Woodland Park, Colorado at Woodland Park High School. Flipped learning, I think on a really basic level, is taking what has traditionally been given in a lecture in terms of direct instruction and shifting that out of the class time and then using that recuperated time more wisely, more valuably to really meet the individual learning needs of students. The way I got started doing this is I just started recording my lessons live for my students who were missing class and posting those online for them as a resource. They get to access it when they want to, and that could be at 10 o'clock at night, it could be 6 o'clock in the morning, it could be on the bus to the soccer game. They have control of that. Students would watch those before they came to class, and the class time was work time, engaging in some higher order thinking, and so we didn't have to use our class time for direct instruction, we could shift that out of the class.
There's a site where we go to and we watch our podcast, and it has like all the units.
And during the class period, we're doing labs and applying the skills that we learned at home.
I wish more people would do the flipped classroom. I think it definitely works for every speed of learner.
If a student is a fast learner, they can go through the material as quickly as they want. The slower learners, the students who struggle, they have control of the rate at which they learn the material. So they can pause the teacher, they can rewind the teacher, they can view it multiple times if they need to. If everyone's not doing the same thing at the same time on the same day, my class looks a little chaotic. It looks like a three-ring circus of learning is what I call it. I also give them the option, if they don't want to take my test, to demonstrate their understanding some other way. So I have students making video games, writing comic books, creating art projects. So yeah, the sky's the limit. Whatever they want to do, as long as they can prove to me that they get it, that they're learning, that they understand these things, and it's good enough for me. There's a school in Michigan that has adopted this instructional model for all of their core classes. And what they're seeing there is that their failure rates have gone from like in the 40% down to single digits. So that's pretty remarkable there. One of the concerns that educators are really wrestling with these days is the fact that we are preparing our students for jobs that don't exist yet. And I really see flipped learning as a tool that teachers can leverage to help students learn to think, learn to access information when they need it, and to be able to process it in a meaningful way. So I might not be training my kids for a specific job, but I'm giving them the tools, the ability to think and to process and to problem solve that they will need for whatever they end up doing.
I've been teaching math for the last 5 years, and this is why I flipped my classroom. This is what my classroom used to look like. I was teaching to the middle group of the class, the students that could follow along with what we were doing, and we were going through the content, while I had a group of higher level students not challenged, bored with the information, ready to move forward. And I had a struggling group of students that were not receiving enough effective remediation. They didn't have the basic content they needed to be working on the content we were currently covering, or they needed more help in order to be successful. This led to a 90% use of class time being spent on delivery and review of content. 90% of the time I was at the front of the classroom lecturing to a group of students, and I wasn't meeting all of their needs. 10% of class time was actually spent on application, which led to, depending on students, to do the application needed to be successful. They had to go home or outside of class and work on applying the concepts that I was giving out in class. This constant battle of not reaching the needs of all students and feeling the need to differentiate for all of my learners allows teachers to feel overwhelmed and ineffective, because we see the need for differentiation, but there's just not enough time for effective differentiation. This called for a drastic change in how we teach. This is where flipping the classroom comes in. Now the students outside of class preload the content. They get the information they're going to need for class. They can pause, rewind, and rewatch the videos as many times as they need to. They can post questions online to their classmates or to the teacher. And it's a self-paced program where they can be remediated by going back and reviewing former topics, or they can work ahead when they've already mastered a concept and are ready to look forward. They get the content here before class, so that when they come into class, my whole classroom has now shifted, where I'm at the center of the class, working between these differentiated groups, focused on different pieces of application. I can now work between each of these groups that are moving at their own pace. This has created a 90% use of class time spent on application of the content, and 10% of class time is spent on delivery of content, when I can answer questions that have been posted or take any other questions that have come up from applying the content. Now in my classroom, all students are engaged and challenged. I have time to work with each group, give them individualized time and instruction as they need, and I can actually work between each of the groups to provide effective differentiation for all my varied groups of learners. My struggling students, my middle group of learners, and I can now extend and expand on my higher level students' prior knowledge and challenge them in the classroom. To learn more about flipping the classroom, visit the Friday Institute's website.
So you see how they're the same thing?
What if you took the traditional school day and flipped it on its head? Not literally, of course, but having lessons offered at night at home and homework done by day in the classroom. That's the experiment underway at Clintondale High School, just outside Detroit, an area still reeling from the economic and social ills of the nearby city. The school serves many low-income families and faces tight budgets and declining enrollment.
So what's the number part that we make from?
Just 3 years ago, almost half of Clintondale's 9th graders were failing math, science, and English. And overall school performance was ranked in the lowest 5% in Michigan. Principal Greg Green decided to take a risk.
Frankly, we weren't doing very well, and so we had to make a change. I mean, we were desperate for change.
His aha moment came while coaching his 11-year-old son's baseball team. Having learned to record and post instructional videos for his players to watch outside of practice, he was struck by how much time was then left to focus on individual players on the field. He saw the educational potential starting with the power of videos.
Kids can go back and watch them as many times as they want, and in me as an instructor or expert, I don't have to redo that all the time, and I can spend my time with the students in class and actually assisting them. And so if I could do that with 11-year-olds, imagine what we could do with 15 or 16-year-olds doing math.
Green went all in, flipping the entire school, urging his staff to rethink the use of technology and how it complements traditional teaching, and getting local businesses to help fund the effort.
So the legislative branch makes the laws.
Now lectures are recorded and posted online.
The American Civil War lasted from 1861 to 1865.
Or teachers can assign outside videos from the popular Khan Academy and TED Talks. Students watch these videos as homework outside of class.
Why do you say it, Tony?
In class, students now do what was once considered homework, assignments designed to test learning comprehension. Clintondale teachers say this allows more time for one-on-one help and often encourages students to collaborate in problem solving. But English teacher Rob Damron said it took some convincing.
When we first did this, it was funny to look around that staff meeting and look at a lot of staff members, especially the ones that have been here 25, 30 years, and say, what are you talking about? What's a blog? What's a Google group?
Apostrophes makes a noun show ownership or possession.
For teaching for 20 years, I know what lessons kids are going to have a problem with. But I think with doing this flipped approach, there's problems I didn't even know existed. So you really can't hide back there in the corner and say, yeah, I got it. And then the teacher sees later on, well, no, you really didn't get it.
One problem the school faced head-on: students who can't afford or don't have access to technology outside of class. They're given extra time in the school's media lab.
Segregation before 1954.
Taking the technology-driven approach further, some lesson plans are now tailored to have students use the latest trends in social media.
Thanks to the 19th Amendment, us women have the right to vote. We deserve to vote. We deserve to vote.
Like this project that required constitutional amendments to be summed up in 6 seconds for the popular website Vine. Green says that taken all together, after 3 years, the flip is paying off.
Our ACT gains have shown we're doubling the national average as far as ACT gains. State testing, we've had some mixed results on that. And we've also seen an increase in graduation rates at almost 90%, college acceptance rates at 80%.
Senior Darrell Wallace Jr. is one example. His grades have risen from a 2.5 GPA as a freshman to 3.5 as a senior. And he says the flip has played a big role. He now watches videos on his cell phone while taking the bus home into a rough section of Detroit, where he lives with his mother and 4 sisters.
I really looked at the videos more because I know I might not have as much time at home because my sisters are in college and they need the computer, so I'm like, I can do it on my phone. And the bus ride is like 30 minutes, so I probably can get like half of my assignment done.
Daryl's mother, Sabrina Young, also likes the flipped model, saying there's only so much she can do to help with traditional homework.
Especially algebra. So him doing it at school is a plus for him now as well as me, because I still remember the majority of it.
The popularity of online learning has surged in recent years, and flipped classrooms have started popping up everywhere, from elementary schools to some of the nation's top universities. Clintondale is the first U.S. high school to do a total flip. Harvard's Justin Reich has been studying the trend and says he's cautiously optimistic.
What is exciting to me about the flipped classroom is that it gets teachers asking 2 really important fundamental questions. What are the best ways for me to use my time, especially the very precious time I have in classrooms with my students? And then what are the kinds of direct instruction that I could provide that could be digitized so that people could watch it again?
You'll notice that the last set of notes I gave you were for week 5.
But Wright says that flipping alone isn't enough. As with any lesson plan, it all depends on exactly what's being offered.
If what we see from the flipped classroom is that we take bad lectures and uninteresting worksheet problems that characterize a lot of the experience that students have in schools, and we simply flip the order of those two things, the odds that we see significant improvement in our schools is pretty low.
And so now we're going to be taking the derivative with respect to T.
Meanwhile, some individual teachers are experimenting with the flipped classroom on their own. 3 years ago, Stacy Roshan flipped her upper-level math classroom at the private Bullis High School outside of Washington, D.C., where students pay up to $35,000 a year in tuition. She says it's been working for her, but that it might not be for everyone.
I think what's the most important thing is that you really think through what your problem is. I wouldn't say that because everybody's doing the flipped classroom in school, you should do the flipped classroom too. My problem was really time, anxiety, and perhaps if I went to another school, I would do things completely differently.
One added surprise for Roshan in structuring her class this way is what she learned about the reach of her online lessons.
I get thank you letters from students all the time, not even just from the US, but overseas too, and that part always amazes me.
Back at Clintondale, Principal Greg Green's big experiment is getting a lot of attention. More than 200 educators from around the world have visited the school, trying to draw lessons from the flipped classroom.
All right. Any questions so far about what this flipped classroom is all about? Well, that's the one we just saw. What happened to our AV guy? Okay. So where is flipped classroom being used? It's being used in many parts of the world, including Malaysia. Not very often. Apparently there's a professor at USM in Penang that is very much convinced into the flipped classroom model. As you can see, it's been a program that's been going on for quite a number of years. It's not new. Okay? You're probably already doing it, but didn't call it that way. So, so this section is to find out if you have a bit of better understanding what flipped classroom is all about. And then the next section of the videos is what are some of the problems that we have flipped classroom. So before we get to this section, are there any questions about the principles of flipped classroom?
Why the videos are Western people? I cannot see a single video with the Asian context.
Probably because the Asian people don't put the videos. Yeah. So yes, most of the videos are Western videos. Any more questions about the flipped classroom?
I actually think that the video actually cleared up my misunderstanding, because previously I thought that, you know, if you give, that's the problem we all face. I think you as teachers will also face the same thing. When we give the instructions earlier, and when you give the same instructions that the students come to class, then the students don't come. So whenever you give them a sort of a lecture beforehand, when you give the lecture, then the students won't come. But according to what Dr. Robert has just shown, that it's not just, you're not repeating what you already given the students. It's just that you're testing the students. So you let the students do the classroom work at home, and then the students, when they learn, you assess them when the students come. So if you assess them when the student comes, then actually the students will have to come because you're assessing them. So I think it makes sense. Thank you.
speak quite loudly.
Right. In terms of this duration, it doesn't tell you when is it that you give this recordings or the videos to the students. Knowing the students' characters, you give the video today, and then after that they go back. Some actually, having responsibilities and all that. The next day when they come, they say, "Oh, teacher, I didn't have time. Oh, teacher, I forgot." Things like that. So I noticed that throughout the video, it doesn't actually tell you how long or duration-wise in terms of providing the videos to the students. If you give too long, then those who actually understand will be like, as the third character where they're advanced, it'll be boring for them. So yeah, that was something that was not clarified.
Correct. So the question is, what to do with students? You give the lesson before the classroom, and the students don't watch or make all sorts of excuses. And that's what this next section is going to be about how to deal with these problem students, so to say. Any more questions about the principles of the flipped classroom for starters? Okay, if not, then let's see the next set of videos. Problems with a flipped classroom, student access the lessons when they don't have computers. That might be a problem, okay? Or they have spotty internet connection. Okay, the videos are time intensive to make. What if students don't do it, which is basically your question, and creating the learning activities for in-class work.
So is this for you? Will a flipped classroom work in your subject area in grade level? We think the answer is yes, and here's why. So how do you flip a science class? Take your direct instruction, put that on a video. All that time you get back, labs, labs, labs. Get your kids involved in hands-on learning. In fact, start going down the road of inquiry. Have your students engage in a question and an investigation before you supplement them with some of that video content.
In math class, it's like the biggest no-brainer in the flipped classroom. Kids struggle with math content, so put the problems and how to do that on the video so that when they're in class, they get the help that they need. But don't just solve problems. Make sure you're also bringing in problems and projects that enhance the learning environment for your students.
Can you flip a class like English that isn't real content heavy? The answer is yes. Think about the mechanics of language, the mechanics of grammar, the mechanics of writing. Those are the type of instructional things you could put on a video so that you can get your time back in your class to actually get the students involved in the writing process. You could also use those videos as a remediation tool for students who come to your class without the prerequisite skills.
What about a practical subject like art or woodworking? Well, make a video on techniques and tools the students would use so that in class they can apply those same techniques and tools so that in class the students are making things.
Social studies teachers can leverage video to deliver concept overviews. That way you can get class time back to get students involved in dialogue and reading original documents. That way they're learning more about why things happen in history than just what happened in history.
Can you flip a physical education class? Of course you can. So make a video on how to serve a volleyball so when the kids come to class, they can serve volleyballs. Or how to play a particular game so that when they come to class, they can play the game. This frees up class time for teachers who are bogged down with too much explanation and rule giving.
What about students who learn at a pace that's different than the pace that the teacher is teaching? They could be a student who learns very, very quickly or a student who might learn a little more slowly. Well, having a flipped classroom in place gives the students control over the pace in which they're exposed to content.
A student can watch a video at double speed and hear the content faster.
Or a student can also pause and rewind if they need to hear content slower or multiple times.
The common thread in all of these examples is that lower level skill and concept stuff is done on the video so that the in-class time is used for higher order thinking, deeper learning, and more engagement. Here are some tips to overcome some of the hurdles and blunders that we've seen commonly happen as teachers flip their classrooms.
Make sure your students can access the content. We all know that not all students have access to the internet at their home, so you may have to come up with some other solutions. Get some flash drives, check them out to students, burn the video content onto DVDs, or write a grant, get a class set of some sort of digital device that you can check out to your students and they can take home and use that way.
Make sure you teach your students how to watch a video. You say, my kids know how to watch a video. Yes, they know how to watch Spider-Man, but that's not the same as watching an educational video that you've created for them to watch. Ultimately, you're trying to teach them how to interact with the video content in a meaningful way that causes them to reflect and think through what they're being exposed to. I had a conversation with a 6th grade teacher, and he said, I spent 3 weeks teaching my students how to watch a video. He had, little guys, 12-year-olds. I had 16-year-olds. It makes a huge difference based on the maturity of the kids and what they are ready and prepared to learn.
Keep in mind that the length of the videos does matter. Our rule of thumb is 1 to 1.5 minutes per grade level that the students are in. So a 4th grade student, you're talking 4 to 6 minutes max. A 10th grade student, 10 to 15 maximum. Keep it short, and if you need to make more videos that are short, that's better than making fewer videos that are long. Another question that a lot of teachers ask is, what do I do if students show up to my class and they haven't viewed the content? Well, let's be real here. I mean, there are kids who are going to show up to any classroom who haven't done their homework. That's just a reality that we live in as educators. It's really not that different in a flipped classroom, but there are ways that you can safeguard or build in some steps to keep kids engaged while they're viewing the content and that you can use to check to see if they have. We took the low-tech approach. We just wanted to see some notes. Other teachers are embedding these videos onto a web page and embedding like a Google form underneath it to collect some data from the students, having them answer some questions. You can just pose a question in the video themselves and have the students bring the answer to that question as an entrance ticket into class. So there's all sorts of different ways that you can check to see if students actually did their work, and then you as a teacher, as an educator, will just hold them accountable for that.
Ultimately, I think the key is that you hold kids accountable. If they've made the poor choice of not doing the work, then what you're going to do is you're going to take that time and you're going to say, you now have to watch the video in class while the other kids are getting help on the hard stuff.
So some teachers get a little intimidated by this idea of creating their own videos. Really, you don't need a super duper studio. You don't need to worry about high-dollar cameras and things like that. But there are a few techniques that you can do to really improve the quality of your stuff. So sit in a room with good lights, have a nice quiet area to work, and don't have a distracting background. Have something nice and simple. Those are things that you can introduce to help the quality. Another question you should ask yourself is, do I need it to be perfect, or do I need it on Tuesday? So some teachers can get bogged down and trying to have everything just perfect, but how many of your actual live lessons in a classroom have been perfect? Probably not very many. We teach naturally, we teach organically, and we speak to our students in a way that's meaningful to them. Make these videos the same way. Just make them effective content delivery tools. Don't worry about trying to make a Hollywood production out of it.
One of the beauties of the flipped class is it's very scalable. You know what? You don't have to flip a class. You could flip one lesson, or you could flip a unit, or you could flip a whole class. It's scalable. So one recommendation we would have for you is maybe you need to start small and figure out what's the best place to flip. If I were to give you a recommendation of what you should flip if you're looking for a lesson, find something that your kids struggle with. I was working with a group of 4th grade teachers, and we were talking about math, and they said, in unison to me, they said, my kids struggle with long division. I said, that's your first flipped class video, is long division. So what's the equivalent of long division for you? That's your first lesson to flip.
So to recap, make sure all of your students have access to the content.
Make sure to teach them how to watch the videos.
Build in some safeguards to make sure that all students are actually watching the videos.
Don't feel the need to make your videos perfect.
And don't try to do too much all at once. Take it step by step, take it slow, and before long, you will have flipped your class. When a lot of people think about flipped classrooms, they start thinking about videos. Lots and lots of videos. Video, 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 video. And video has a technological component to it, and a lot of people then think that the flipped classroom is a technological solution. Well, we think a flipped classroom is a pedagogical solution with a technological component. A very large technological component. So let's get some of these tech tools on the table so we can get you the tools that you need to start flipping your class.
But Aaron, why do I need to make my own videos? There's lots of videos out there. 2 + 2 = 4, whether I say it or somebody on the internet says it.
Well, you're right, there's plenty of material out there, but I think it's really best for teachers to try at least to make their own content. There's a relational aspect that you have with your students that no one else in this world has, and you cannot replace that by using someone else's material. So I've decided to make my own video content. I don't know the first thing about making videos. What do I need to make this happen?
I know a teacher. He hands the phone to a student and said, "Can you help me make a video after class?" And they shoot the video of him standing at the chalkboard, and then he posts the video online.
And if you choose a student who's struggling, that student is going to get it twice. They're going to see you when they're there live with you, and then they can go back and view that video content again.
Differentiated instruction. Another tool for making flipped class videos are screencasting programs. Whatever is on the screen is recorded.
And in case you haven't noticed, tablets are everywhere. And there are a plethora of whiteboarding apps for tablets that you can write on the screen, bring in pictures, record your audio to produce video content for your students. Okay, so now that you've created some video content, where are you going to put it so your students can access it?
There's a plethora of sites such as YouTube and Vimeo you can use. But what if your kids don't have access? A lot of kids, well, they don't have access to the technology. What do you do then?
We have physical media that we could use. We have USB drives. They're relatively inexpensive. Get a few of those, check them out to your students as needed, or you can burn them onto a DVD.
So with all these tools for creation and sharing of the videos, we're often asked which is the best tool or tools that you should use. Ultimately, it depends upon you. What technology are you comfortable with? What do you actually have? That's the tool that's going to be best for you.